What is going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to yet another video. My name is Anthony Pinto da Costa, and you are watching the Canadian Physio Student. All right, people. So I'm back again with another video interview. And today's video interview is all about the physiotherapy program at the University of Alberta, which I will be discussing with the one and only Hailey Wilkerson. Hailey, how's it going today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on and do this. Really appreciate it. I think you can provide some good insight about the program, and I think a lot of people will gain something from this. Perfect. Okay. So do you want to just provide the viewers with a brief introduction about yourself? You know, tell them who you are, where you're from, education level, all that, and then we'll get right into it.
Cool. So my name is Hailey Wilkerson. I was born and raised in Edmonton, and I moved to Nova Scotia to do my undergrad, which I did at Acadia. I did my Bachelor of Kinesiology with honors, and totally fell in love with Nova Scotia. Said, bye Alberta, I'm never coming back. But then I got into the U of A for physio school, so I was like, okay, I guess I'm coming back. So then moved back to Edmonton, started my master's in 2018, and should be finishing up soon.
Hopefully. Knock on wood. So is the plan to go back to Nova Scotia?
That is the plan. So I'm here right now, actually, which is great.
Nice.
Had a couple of weeks off, so I'm like, I'm going home.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nova Scotia is kind of hurting for physios. So, and the Alberta healthcare system right now is kind of a nightmare. So,
yeah. Go fill that void.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Sweet. So I'll get into the questions here now, more specifically about U of A. So my first question here is just, how's your experience been so far at the U of A PT program?
So far so good. Everything was going swimmingly until COVID happened.
Of course.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. So everyone's like super sweet. All of the profs are very lovely, very intelligent, but also like really approachable, which is amazing. The kids in my class are lovely, beautiful human beings 99% of the time, so that's great.
Nice.
Yeah, got involved with the CPA through, my program, so that's been really exciting and interesting. Yeah, so far, so good.
Sweet. Awesome. It's always nice to have the approachable profs. Sometimes in undergrad it was tough to go up in front of the class of like 300 people in there, and you don't want to do that because they come off as intimidating, but it's totally different in PT school.
Very much so. And I was very lucky in my undergrad that I went to a small school. So like my biggest class I think was like maybe like max 300, and it was like intro psych or like astronomy or something like that.
Yeah.
But some of my classes had like 5 kids in it, so going to like the master's level where you see the same like 100 kids every day and the same profs, it was not a huge change for me, but it was still like I really appreciate the program.
Yeah, that's good. That's solid. Okay, perfect. Next question here for you is, can you just provide a brief overview of the U of A PT program? I know it's a lot. I know it's a loaded question.
It's okay. I pulled up our little flow chart that we have. God bless the flow chart. So the U of A program is one of the longest ones in Canada. I think McGill's like 3 years maybe, but they have their own kind of system there. So we are, 28-month program, 31 courses we take over that time. And then we have to do a couple of electives for fun and learning. So we start off the program in August of whatever year you're entering in. And August is just like anatomy. So every day anatomy, you have like 2 hours of lecture, super fast paced. And then after, you have your little lunch break, and then you go to the cadaver lab for your lab every day, and pick around in there and learn some stuff and smell some smells. And then you also get a lovely box of bones, some plastic, some real, to take home and play and learn with. So that's a very interesting thing to take on the train, let me tell you. But super useful. So yeah, that's month 1 is just anatomy. It's just straight anatomy. And then our regular classes start in September. So the first kind of block of classes is just like foundational stuff that you need to know, like how to exercise. This is what a physio
Gait
is.
aids, things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So just like super basic foundations of PT, foundations of whatever.
Hmm.
So that goes for the first whatever the fall term. Then we have like a 3 week kind of winter break thing. Um, which is nice. But right before that break, we have like a 1 week clinical placement, just to kind of dip the toes and figure stuff out.
Hmm.
Then in the new year of that first year, um, there's another block of classes, which is like MSK and cardio resp. Then we have another little week-long break, and then the spring and summer term starts, and that starts with like our first big placement. So that's like the first 6 week one that we do is in like the spring semester of the first year, which I think is later than a lot of other programs. Like we pretty much have 2 full blocks of classes before we go on a placement.
Hmm.
And then after that clinical placement, the first one is done. We go into like 6 weeks of online classes. This is all like in a world that doesn't have COVID, because right now everything's
Oh, okay.
online.
Yeah.
Like the typical, we would do 6 weeks of online classes,
Hmm.
and then we have a break for about 5 weeks, which is really great. So like your August of your at the end of your first year, you can just kind of like relax and let your brain like
Recuperate.
back into a solid, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. And then start again in September, and we have a lot of like our neuro classes in that block. Small break, and then we start on placement again in January. So it's another 6 week placement. Then there's usually reading week after that. Then we go back into class for like long-term conditions, chronic conditions, stuff like that. After that, we should have had a placement in April for 6 weeks, or like very end of April, beginning of May, something like that. That didn't happen for us this year. That got pushed to later. So it kind of, our clinical placement on our classes just switched around. So we just went straight from like our long-term conditions block into our last block of classes, which is like more chronic conditions and our capping project. And then usually we have 2 placements after that, but now since it's switched, we have 3 placements left at the end of it. So we should be done in late November. Yeah. So 5 6-week placements, and there's an extra 1 week placement at the beginning. But we might have switched to 5-week placements instead of 6 weeks for these last 3, just because finding placements has been hard
Yeah.
with COVID. But we're still like meeting the necessary amount of hours, so it's like okay, but kind of sucks. But they gotta do what they gotta do to make sure we actually get on placement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It's a good overview. I like that. Very detailed. So
Yeah,
just a
sorry, got a little
question.
bit of grief.
No worries. No worries. That's good. I had a question about that capping project. So is that like your research project?
Sort of, kind of, but not really. So it's not like we're not really contributing anything new to the research world. But pretty much you get a patient scenario, like this is patient X, they have this yada yada yada, they're thinking about doing blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Is it a good idea, is it not? Tell us what the research says. So you pretty much it's like a big case study, pretty much, where you have to find, do all your research, find all your systematic reviews, and pretty much present like, this is what we think would be the best plan of action for this patient based on blah blah blah. And there's a paper that we write. It's like a group project, so I think there's like 4 people in a group. You write a paper. I think it's like 14 pages maybe.
Yeah.
It might be a lie, about that long.
Yeah.
And then after that, there's like an oral exam, just to make sure everyone understands what's going on. So that's individual. So you get asked questions on like what you learned, what the research says, how good is the research, what does the stats mean, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like do you know how to read the evidence?
Yeah. So that covers the research component of your program, basically. It's
Pretty much.
like the equivalent of a research project for some of the other programs.
Yeah, so we have like three or four evidence-based practice classes
Hmm.
throughout the program. So it kind of starts off like, this is how you do simple stats. This is how you can like evaluate different types of research articles. This is how to, do quality improvement, and all this other stuff. Yeah, you pretty much just learn like how to read the literature, how to make sure you know what you're reading is
Credible.
worthwhile
Yeah.
credible is a better word than worthwhile.
Yeah.
And then it kind of ends with this. You kind of like pull everything together that you've learned in this capping project to be like, okay, this is how I'm applying that knowledge to a patient scenario.
Gotcha. That's good. That really brings everything together at the end of the program. So sweet. That's a good overview. Okay. Next question here. More geared towards you actually. So where have you been on placement so far throughout your time at U of A PT program?
So my little 1 week placement I had was at the Glen Rose Rehab Hospital in Edmonton, and that was in the geriatrics unit. And oh my gosh, I loved it. It was great.
Nice.
A lot of hip drills, but the patients were like they were just lovely.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. So that was just like my first week. The first full 6 week placement I had was at a clinic called Active Physio Works, which is in St. Albert, which is like it's like in the greater Edmonton area, but its own town kind of situation. So yeah, that was private practice. It was mostly like MSK. Saw some. Had a couple of motor vehicle accident patients. Had a few workers' comp patients. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Learned a lot, but it was we hadn't done our second MSK course at the time yet, so we had like so many backs at this clinic for some reason, and we hadn't done like our back and spine, like how to gap, how to test all these things yet. So it was kind of tricky, and I was trying to learn from my CI. And I was like, I really need to like read a book on this.
Yeah.
But still a really great learning experience. My CI that I had was really lovely. Very tall. There's like a foot difference between us, so like co-treating and be like, okay, we gotta put the patient up and back down.
It's a good balance.
But body mechanics.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, really great experience. And my last placement that I had was back at the Glen Rose again, which is at Rehab Hospital in the pediatrics department. So this was a 2-on-1 placement. So I was with my buddy Dana, and we had like the same CI, so we were like co-treating a lot. But holy macaroni, I loved it so much. Like, I want to do peds, and that was kind of like the nail in the coffin. Like, heck yes, this is great. The Glen Rose has like a really big catchment area for the kiddos, so like we saw some like very strange, very rare conditions, which was cool. And like, oh my gosh, little kids are so cute. Like doing range of motion on little babies is like the most satisfying thing in the world.
Easier on the body too.
Yes, very much so. Until you have to like lift a like 14-year-old kid with like level 4, CP. That's a little bit harder on the body, but it's, you definitely learn body mechanics are still important with kiddos.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was awesome. Got to work in like a casting clinic for our Botox kiddos. So, that was a cool experience in itself, like learning how to like mold casts and stuff. Easy with the kiddos who have done it a lot. When you go to kicker, it's a little bit more tricky to get like a good angle, but good learning experience. Yeah, so that's where I've been so far. Sorry, there's something in my eye. And then, you can cut that out if you want.
Yeah, I'll keep it in.
My next placement coming up in August is at the Cross Cancer Institute in Edmonton. One of my mom's friends who was there said, if you get cancer, it's the place to be. So hopefully no one gets cancer, but they're kind of inevitable. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think it's like all cancers, all different kinds of patients. So that'll be really interesting to see and learn. Yeah.
That's great.
What I know so far. The last 2 placements are
up in the air.
Up in the air.
Yeah.
We have to do an Alberta adventure, which is like a rural placement. So I haven't had my adventure yet. So one of my last two is going to be somewhere in the boonies.
Yeah.
Don't know where yet though, but it's like out of not in Greater Edmonton or not in Greater Calgary, like somewhere else in Alberta. So that should be interesting to get that kind of like rural idea. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm from Nova Scotia, which is like all rural anyways, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah.
But it'll be kind of see how that works. Nice to see how that works in Alberta. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's so far.
Those are your placements. That's a good range of placements. And I like that point you bring up about your second placement on how, there were some conditions that you weren't equipped yet to be able to treat. That's very real throughout PT school for any future PT students who are going to be watching. I had the same experience. Like on my first placement, I was in a private clinic, and yeah, I had learned about all the peripheral joints, special tests, how to assess, how to treat, things like that. But anything with the back and neck, we hadn't taken that course yet, right? So my CI was just kind of like, you know what, you can observe, but you're probably not going to really know what's going on, but you just kind of, you got to roll with it. Like even one of my other classmates, like her first placement, I remember was like a cardio rest placement, and we hadn't learned any cardio rest yet, right? So you just got to be adaptable. You just got to roll with it, and you'll get through it,
Sponge, learn what you can, and
Yeah.
it's like you're gonna learn so much on placement just being in that environment. Like, sure, it's great to know kind of what you're going into beforehand, but you can always look stuff up when you get home.
Absolutely.
And like ask your CI. They're like experts, so.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. Okay. We'll move on to this next one here. What are the differences between the various campuses at U of A? So I know there's a few of them now.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of the cool things about the U of A Physio program is that we are separated into different campuses. So it started about 10 years ago at the Camrose campus, so the Augustana campus. They have about like 12 students there, and then we had the remaining students in Edmonton. There's also a Calgary campus now, so Calgary has about 18 students, Camrose had 12, and then Edmonton had about 80. Our whole class is like 110 in total. So I'd say the majority of our profs are in Edmonton, but there's still like a pretty significant amount that are in Camrose and Calgary. So all of our classes are kind of like Zoom, where sometimes the prof's standing in front of you and sometimes the prof's on the screen. And like the first week, it's like kind of weird because you're like, okay, well I can see my classmates in like Calgary and Camrose, and they can see me. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But after like a week, it's like you're used to it. Like they can see you when you raise your hand and ask questions and stuff. Like there's a catch box that you talk into, so it's all very like they figured out what they're doing, which is really great. Super unfortunately, with our current premier situation in Alberta, which is less than ideal, the U of A got a lot of funding cut, and the Faculty of Rehab Med, I think, lost something like $18 million worth of funding. So they very unfortunately had to close Augustana this year. So this is like the last year that they're having the Camrose campus, which is super unfortunate. I know historically a lot of those students have like stayed working rural. Camrose is kind of a rural community and they stay rural, which is really great.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that affects like where our physios are going if they don't have that. Hopefully, maybe if we get funding again, it would be something to reopen. But yeah, it's kind of crappy that they had to get rid of that. But yeah. So yeah, two different ones now.
Yeah.
A lot smaller classes, obviously. In like Calgary, there's only 18 of you that you're seeing every day. Like you see people on the screen, but there's like 18 that you're interacting with. Versus Edmonton, where we have like 80 students, so there's a lot more like variation in who you're working with, and stuff. But if you're looking for like a small school experience, like 80 doesn't seem that bad, but like 12 is like, you're spending a lot of time with these people and these profs. So it's just a different experience. But
gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So just for clarification, so say you're in Calgary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes the prof can actually be teaching like right in front of you, and then the Edmonton campus is zooming in, and then vice versa. Sometimes they're teaching in Edmonton, and then you're zooming in.
Yeah, so we're always like all connected during all of our classes.
Yeah.
Labs are sometimes different because we'll just like split up because it's easier for hands-on stuff. But
Mm.
for classes, like cameras in Calgary are always on the screen because they only like they teach the one class at the same time for everyone. So, yeah, sometimes it just depends like which whatever prof. Like let's say we have Lisa in Camrose is teaching professional issues, and Jackie in Calgary also has a professional issues class or whatever. And then, Jeff and Judy in Edmonton teach MSK
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So, yeah, it just kind of depends which class you're in, who's teaching, but yeah, they're
Okay.
either in front of you or on the screen in front of you. The screens are big, it looks like they're there anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's reassuring for a lot of future students, because I think some of them may have concerns about learning off a screen, but
Mm-hmm.
the way you talk about it very candidly here, like it's kind of weird at first, but then
Mm-hmm.
you get used to it. That's pretty reassuring.
Yeah, they've got like the cameras everywhere and everything. So yeah, if you have a question, you just raise your hand. Even if your prof is in Calgary, they'll still see you with your hand raised
Yeah.
and like they know your name and everything, which
Hmm.
is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes like 2 weeks to get used to, and then you're like, this is fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That clears up a lot. Awesome. Okay, next question for you here. Where am I here? Oh, I guess other than the various campuses, what makes U of A different from the other PT programs in Canada?
Hmm. Okay, so having only been to the U of A for PT school,
Yeah.
I'll do my best to answer this. So yeah, the multiple campuses is a big thing. Um, I think we have like a really good mix of like clinical profs and also research profs. Like we have a few profs that are like, they're like experts on whatever field,
Hmm.
which is great. And then we have like a bunch of profs that are still like practicing in the community, practicing in private practice, whatever. So they're like really in touch with like what's going on because they are still treating patients every day. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's kind of similar everywhere though, so that might
Yeah.
be a lot. Um, there's what's the words I'm looking for? Since like with the multiple campuses, like they're really good with the whole tech situation.
Hmm.
So especially with the whole like COVID situation, we didn't need to take 2 weeks off to get everything online because everything like all that infrastructure was already set up.
Yeah.
So like we had like an extra long like a 3-day weekend in like March or whatever, and then we were just like full online classes on Tuesday. Like it wasn't a huge change for us.
Yeah.
Obviously learning at home is a whole new experience, but like it didn't take long to figure that out. So yeah, the tech and teaching is kind of cool. Also with like our testing, there's a building called HCirc, Health Sciences something.
We'll put it in the description. Yeah.
Can't remember, but it's a building where a bunch of the health science students are, and they have all these like testing rooms. So when you have your like OSCEs or whatever throughout the year, you go in there and it's all filmed. So it's just like you and usually a classmate, they'll be your patient or whatever, and so you don't have to worry about like there's not really a prof sitting there staring at you making you nervous. It's just like you and your patient,
Hmm.
and they just like film it and mark it later,
Yeah.
which is really cool. But they can also like talk to you through the speaker in the ceiling if something like is going on. So that's cool. So yeah, the tech integration is really cool and like really well done, I think. What else is cool about Edmonton? We have a lot of like inter-D classes, like interdisciplinary stuff. I don't know how common that is at all the schools, but we have like a inter-D class that all of the like health science students do. So like nurses, med students, pharmacy, med lab science, OT, PT, SLP. So you just get kind of put in this like hodgepodge mix of everyone and like work on cases together and stuff. So it's a good kind of experience to figure out, okay, this is what everybody's kind of scope of practice is, and this is what we can all bring to the table, and this is how we work together and
Hmm.
not be weird and stuff. So that's kind of cool and nice. Um, there's a new prereq for the physio program. There's like a Canadian Indigenous history prerequisite that the incoming students have to do now. I think they started this the year after I got in the program, but I mean, that's kind of new and exciting and like necessary.
Yeah.
um, so that's really cool that they brought that in as well. Um, yeah, all of our classes are pretty much in the same building, which is nice. It's called Corporate Hall, and it's like super pretty.
Hmm.
So that's kind of nice. Um, and yeah, so actually, besides anatomy is in like a different building, but I'm okay with that because like it's
Keep it
nothing.
separate. Yeah.
Yeah, but so you're in the same place every day with the same kids, so yeah, it's nice. I don't know. Edmonton's cold, which
It
kind
is
of
very
sucks in the
cold.
winter.
It is. I've
But
been there.
you know, it's okay.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. No, I like the quick bounce back from when COVID started. Like you guys already had the tech in place, so it was like
Mm-hmm.
easy snap of the finger and you're back into it. Whereas like some
Mm-hmm.
of the other schools were probably a little bit slow because they're not used to having
Yeah.
everything very remote. So cool,
Mm-hmm.
sweet. Okay, so on that topic, actually, last couple questions for you here. How
Mm-hmm.
has U of A PT responded to the whole COVID-19 pandemic? Like, what measures have they put in to kind of alleviate what's been going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, moving everything online really early was obviously good. Um, so they've done some changing around with our schedules as well. So I know us in second year, our like the placement and classes got switched around to kind of keep everyone distance for a little bit longer.
Hmm.
Um, there's been so over the last I guess semester pretty much now. Um, our labs were like online, which is kind of hard to like our spine kind of unit just happened.
Hmm.
So um, they've added in like a skills week. So we should be like reviewing the labs that we did online, and then we're gonna actually like get to hands-on practice that in August coming up. So that's gonna be like the first time we've seen each other since March, but like we kind of need to know these skills before we go on placement, and we can't really finish the classes without having done these skills. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's gonna be interesting. They've got to split up into like relatively small groups. I think it's like I don't know, like 20 kids in a class instead of like 50 or whatever. And they're making sure everything's clean in between the different student groups, and you're supposed to work with the same student every day to keep things like safe, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so that's new and something that we have to do because I mean we got to learn those skills. So it's gonna be a very busy few days, um, trying to figure out. I guess one thing to watch someone else do it on the computer, but like how to wrap a amputated leg.
Yeah.
Figure it out on August 7th, I
Yeah.
guess.
When you're actually working with somebody who has an amputated leg.
Or my pretend amputated leg
Yeah.
with my classmates.
Yeah.
um, hopefully no one's had to have their leg amputated in the last few months.
No.
Yeah, so that's been like the biggest thing, just like getting everything switched online, um, and having that placement pushed back from like April to August. Um, they have cut back our placements a little bit, so from like 6 to 5 weeks, just to like with everything, all the private practices like slowly starting to open up and everything. I just don't think there's like the demand to have the students there yet. So trying to get everyone in, and I know our Ackies have been working like day and night to try and find placements for us. So we're very grateful for them.
Hmm.
Yeah, hand washing, wearing masks,
The whole
distancing,
bit. Yeah.
blah, blah.
No, so it looks like they've responded pretty well, which is good. No surprise, these schools usually have it together as much as they can, and like I don't think anybody's prepared for it. So
Yeah,
at least you guys are still going.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We're doing our best.
Perfect. Sweet. Okay. So I think that's good for U of A in terms of, the scope of this interview. But I just wanted to ask you one last question here. Just, do you have any last general words or pieces of advice for any future PT student in Canada incoming? And it could be anything.
Okay.
And I know there's a lot. There's a lot that we can think of, but
Yeah, I'm just trying to think out of all the things.
yeah.
Be kind to others, but also like to yourself. Like getting into physio school in itself is a huge blessing, and it's very tricky to do. So if you make it, like you're doing so well already. So yeah, just be so nice to yourself. Like you're doing really good. I think it's really important to have some sort of like hobby or something that's not school related to keep your mind off things. I know, especially since this whole COVID thing started, working at home, staying at home, doing schoolwork at home, it's been like, okay, I need an outlet. So like whatever, I want to draw some pictures, you want to bake some cakes, like go for it. Just have something to kind of like escape every once in a while. If you're taking notes, take good notes like the first time around. And that way, when it comes to like finals and your national, you don't have to like go through all your classes and remake all your notes because it's all done the first time. So just do it right the first time, and then you'll save so much time. People probably already do that. I'm just
reiterating.
But it's good to have. Yeah, I don't know. Just be open to like learning, and sometimes you're gonna learn stuff and maybe you won't agree with it, or it's not how you see yourself practicing or whatever, but just like have an open mind and be willing to like hear other perspectives, and that's gonna make you so much better of a practitioner if you're like willing to learn from others and be able to take all like different sources of information into account. Yeah, I don't know, just like be a good person. You're going into a healthcare field, so you're not really allowed to be a butthead.
Be a bad
so
yeah.
Be nice to yourself and be nice to your classmates. Be nice to your profs. Jesus. That's pretty much it though. I don't know.
That's good. No, that's awesome. I love all that. Agree with all of it. Just take it all in. Perfect. Well, Hailey, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. I think that was pretty insightful for some of the people who are watching. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. All right, guys. So just to wrap up here, if you like this video, make sure to like, share, and of course, smash that subscribe button. If you don't want to do that, you can reach out to me on my Instagram at CDN Physio Student, and then we can go from there. All right, guys. So I'll see you at the next video.
Yeah, another day, another dollar to be made. I'm a workaholic, ballin' hard until the grave. Used to wanna be a baller for the NBA, till the fellas around me started dunking in the 7th grade.